Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the future of audits and how regulatory agencies will use AI to evaluate your QMS and how they'll evaluate the AI that you use along with your QMS. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. If you need any assistance during today's broadcast, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. You can send us a message there and we will work to resolve any issues. There's also a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to ask any questions during today's webinar. You can ask questions at any time, but we will answer them and have a dedicated Q&A time later in this session. My name is Jessica Madsen. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at MasterControl over our Quality Excellence Solution, which is our QMS. And I am going to have Dawn go ahead and introduce herself as my co-presenter today.
Hi, my name is Dawn Irons. I am a Principal Product Manager here at MasterControl, also of our Quality Excellence Solutions.
So it is not an exaggeration to say that AI is already starting to impact life science organizations and their quality departments from multiple angles. Today, we're going to dive into a few key topics to help you prepare for the future, and we're going to do our best to keep it practical, though a lot of this is really in early stages, as is a lot of stuff that is surrounding AI. So, we're going to talk about what regulators are doing with AI, how audits are changing, how they're becoming more efficient, and how you can prepare. We're going to talk about how the regulations themselves are changing to incorporate AI and how that's going to impact audits and the way that you run your quality departments. And we'll talk about how life science organizations are adopting AI tools to be more efficient, compliant, and improve overall quality and patient outcomes.
And so, why do we know so much about what's happening in the QMS industry and in AI? Well, it's because we live it. We talk to companies like you every day, and we have been for over 30 years. Over 1,100 organizations use MasterControl for their quality management, from exciting startups, doing something new, to just figuring out their quality management systems, to some of the top life sciences companies in the world who create products that are household names. And we're deeply interested in how AI can solve problems for the industry and have a positive impact on patient lives. A little later in the conversation, we'll cover our specific approach to AI and how we think life science organizations can safely approach it in their quality management.
So let's walk through exactly what we're going to cover today on how AI is impacting quality management. And this is beyond just the general use of ChatGPT, whether that is officially approved by your organizations or not. We know that we hear often of employees going a little bit rogue using it. So we're going to talk about using it the right way. So AI is all the rage, but we all know that we work in an extremely regulated industry, and it is regulated for good reason. The work that quality departments do and the effect that that has on patient safety and outcomes is never something that we want to take for granted. It's important to understand that even in the age of AI, quality leaders are really the ones understanding how to make sure that AI has a positive impact on quality and, frankly, a positive impact on the companies that you work for so that everybody sees that positive impact down the line with regards to patient safety and that as a regulated company, you stay out of trouble. So first, we're going to start with how regulators are already using AI and where they are signaling that they're going to be using it in the future. For this topic, we're going to be focusing a lot on the FDA. They are leading the way here with Elsa. And Elsa is an artificial intelligence tool designed to help FDA employees, everyone from scientific reviewers to investigators to auditors, work more efficiently. It is a very secure platform designed specifically for FDA employees where they can access internal documents and they ensure that all information used in that system and entered into that system remains within the agency, meaning that the models do not train on any of the data submitted by regulated industry employees or that they use from regulated companies. So it really effectively safeguards that sensitive research and data handled by the FDA staff. It's really interesting, I think, to note that the FDA may be leaning so heavily into this as there's been a real large focus on efficiency, as some federal workforces have been cut, but the pace of life science innovation continues to really accelerate and has possibly made for a really imbalanced workload. And they're looking for ways to solve that with AI, as I'm sure most of your departments are as well. So, how will this be most impactful for quality management departments? I think that one of the main uses is going to be to summarize adverse events and review that documentation. They've signaled that they are going to be using that in order to choose which facilities to inspect. So, if your house is not in order, they are trying to find that sooner and resolve things faster. Now, this does not come without risk. Some of the initial critiques of Elsa have focused on hallucination, and we've heard about that a lot in the AI world, and ensuring that there's always a human in the loop for review of all results and decisions. The FDA has committed that they will provide updates to the tool and add new features and address any concerns that they see based on feedback from the users. And, it's really going to be interesting to watch and see as they start pinpointing where they want to audit, how they want to audit, why they want to audit using artificial intelligence, the impact that that has on the industry. Now, on the other side of the pond, the closest thing that the EMA currently has in production is something called Scientific Explorer, and that has been around for a few years. It's an AI-enabled knowledge mining tool for EA regulators that helps staff search for different regulatory and scientific sources as they support assessments that they're doing. But the FDA has really been the leading here with how they want to approach using artificial intelligence to pinpoint where and how and why they want to audit. So we might see a little bit of that understanding of how that impacts a little bit sooner over in the US.
So now that we've talked about how regulators are using AI, let's turn the focus about how they're planning to regulate AI. And there's probably going to be a future where AI will actually assist in regulating AI for that full circle moment to come around. So we're going to talk about both the FDA and the EMA. So FDA and EMA are starting to get specific with how they will regulate the use of AI, including in medical devices that use it, pharmaceutical companies that use AI during research and development, and also how the use of tools will be audited and what documentation will be provided. So, around medical device, we'll start there. The big topic here is around predetermined change control plans guidance. So, PCCPs, we love our acronyms. And this is for AI enabled device software. They are intended to support iterative improvements through modifications to the AI enabled devices while continuing to provide a reasonable assurance of the safety and effectiveness of that device. The plans will cover change over time, and that includes AI behavior and data, how organizations will control it through verification and validation, and when changes should trigger a new submission. It allows you to ship improvements faster to your AI enabled devices while still allowing FDA oversight. Now we turn our focus to pharma. Right now, FDA is layering AI on top of their existing drug laws and GXP framework while issuing new guidance. Now, some are still in draft, but these new guidance will spell out what it expects when AI touches submissions, trials, or manufacturing. So when AI impacts a submission, you should make sure you define the context of use, document the data provenance or quality, and the bias control. You want to verify and validate the model, as well as monitor performance and explain change control. Now, when it comes to clinical trials, treat AI like any other electronic tool. Validate the tools, keep the audit trails, control the access, and preserve data integrity. For manufacturing, be clear when AI model is part of the approved process, and when a model change counts, count that as a reportable change. When we turn our attention to documentation, we've already discussed some documentation today, but the use of AI is a great idea to prepare documentation that has specific written policies around it. So you want to make sure that you have specific policies governing how your organization is using AI. This can include things like SOPs around your inventory, um, the business value versus intended risk. Can also be used to explain how your employees are trained in the use of AI and if there's any issues, how they're escalated. And if there ever needs to be validation, you want to make sure that you document and explain the traceability of that validation, and you want to make sure you have that for your audit purposes if necessary.
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the EU is going forward with their regulations around AI. And for the EU, they are ahead of the FDA in outlining specific regulations regarding the use of AI, but their general intent really aligns on both regulatory bodies. The EU is stressing governance, data quality, transparency, and validation proportional to risk, and clarity about when methods need that qualification. So basically, if AI is influencing your quality decisions, you need to treat it as you would any other critical system. You need to document the intent. You need to understand the risks. It needs to be validated. It needs oversight and it needs continual monitoring. So let's go over a few specifics of what they released. With the EU AI Act, this is really focused on high risk AI use and layers on top of other regulations already in place, like MDR, IVDR, and GXP. It's really for high risk systems, and those high risk systems must meet a set of requirements, which I will talk about in just a minute, and it needs to carry a marking showing that it has met those requirements. So these requirements include AI specific risk management, data and data governance controls, technical documentation, logging and record keeping of exactly how the AI was used, transparency of how it was deployed, where human oversight came into play, and cybersecurity, how you were ensuring that it was secure with any data that you were using. And all of this has to be backed by documentation, and that documentation needs to be maintained by a quality management system. We also have the AI reflection paper from the EMA, and that is how reviewers are going to look at AI anywhere in the life cycle of a life science product. And it really helps outline what good AI governance looks like from a regulatory and audit perspective. Life science organizations should use a risk-based approach as they always have, but they're going to be using that to specifically manage across an AI lifecycle. So the higher the impact on patients of that AI use or on a regulatory decision, the deeper the scrutiny is going to be during an audit. So you should be ready to explain how AI was used in any clinical trials, how it impacted any benefit or risk assessment that you were doing, how that data was trained and processed, and additionally, how you kept a tight human review policy and data integrity policy to ensure that patient safety. And then we have Annex 11 and Annex 22, and this is really interesting. Annex 22 actually supplements Annex 11 to specifically talk about AI use, and it tells inspectors exactly what to look for when they're looking at AI and how it impacts product quality, patient safety, and data integrity. And again, that's specifically looked at when it's impacting critical decisions. So this directly impacts audits and how there are going to be regulation, how regulatory bodies are going to conduct audits in the EU. So you'll need to show and defend how decisions were made if there was any AI involvement, if there was any AI generated content, how that AI was validated, if it impacted those decisions, how you can explain the decisions that the AI made. And auditors will want to see and understand if you used any what's being called black box AI. So that's really where you want to watch for AI, where you're sending it off to a third party and you aren't able to see any of the data that was used, the thinking that was done, what those processes entailed, what those updates were, what data and sources they were pulling from. So that's where you really are wanting to stay away from any general, um, chat GPT use. You really want to use something specified that you can understand and explain during an audit. And all of this is going to really coincide with how you document what you are doing around your AI use. That's really going to be key because That's going to include your AI governance policy, so how you're classifying its risk level, how there are gates of approval set up, what your human in the loop expectations are, which AI systems you're using and the description of that and how they interact with your other systems, the context of use for that AI, and then any change control documentation as changes to these systems continue to happen, and you change how you implement them in your own processes.
So now that we've talked a little bit about the AI regulations themselves, let's shift our focus a little bit. Let's talk about this means specifically for your organization and how you should be prepared for audits under this new dynamic. As we move even more into the digital world with AI, there are even fewer on site inspections that regulatory bodies are going to be holding. More and more, they're going to be relying on AI review documentation to pinpoint high priority inspections, like we discussed earlier. So now is the time to understand how to be prepared for that scenario. So, first, data quality. Ensure your data is clean, structured, and timely to ensure accurate outputs from AI. We've talked about validation and we will always talk about validation. Validation documentation will be needed to make sure that your models are accurate, explainable, and compliant. And lastly, around the governance of AI, you want to understand your AI use cases, the implementation of them, and the training for your employees to ensure consistent scalability and positive outcomes for the use of AI.
So, with all that in mind, it might be time as a quality, you know, department to shift mindset on processes and audits and really the way that we think of quality management. Everything should really always continue to be viewed through the lens of risk. And that's as we allow AI to reduce the time spent on manual, low risk tasks, which is really what we wanted to do, right? Because it often does it with better results and can evaluate a lot more data faster than humans can. It really should allow the quality people who truly understand the strategic quality initiatives that your organization is working on and what's important for your specific product lines and how they impact patient safety to have time to focus on strategy and on moving forward what's important. Well, AI does a lot of that manual work that really needs to be done, but isn't impacting your strategic initiatives. So, quality has always, for years and years and years, talked about moving from reactive to proactive. And it's really been clear as we've started using AI that one of the main uses for it is the ability to review data and gather better insights than a simple dashboard might be able to, that is just surfacing a visual representation of data. Well, that visual representation has been extraordinarily helpful, as data integrity and data analysis has moved forward. What AI can do is just beyond what humans can do with looking at data analysis. When they're trying to handle it on their own. And so we're really moving towards a world where AI becomes the best and most supportive assistant slash intern that you can imagine. As long as it has access to good quality data, like Don mentioned, it really is going to be bringing a lot of that value through data analysis and surfacing insights much faster and more predictive than what humans are able to do on their own. And of course, all of this should be viewed for how the change is going to impact your processes. And again, I keep saying this, but it really needs to include that human in the loop for review and approval of everything that is AI generated and any suggestions that AI has, as the human who works on those processes is really going to be the one that understands, is this a good suggestion from AI or not? And if not, why did it come to that suggestion and how can I make sure to refine it for the future? It really becomes the ultimate assistant for quality management. So finally, today, in this portion of the presentation, we want to spend some time on how MasterControl is again leading the industry in our approach to AI, because we feel that we have a really specific view of how it should be used. So we are the number one QMS in life sciences. That's based on being the leader on multiple review sites, having the most life science organizations that use MasterControl, and having over 30 years of leadership. And this comes from insights from our actual and use from our actual customers. We have a history of innovation with everything from when we started with digital document management all the way through validation, and now with how we're approaching AI. And we're really proud of our ability to connect quality, manufacturing, and asset management all on one platform. So recently, we achieved ISO 42001 AIMS certification. And that is a really big deal for us, and we are really proud of this accomplishment. We are one of only 50 global companies that has been able to meet this certification, and it demonstrates a few things for us. We have a very ethical approach in our commitment to building ethical and reliable AI technologies that are really trustworthy and that really maintain that human oversight and data integrity. And also the fact that we're built on a very specialized architecture that can provide assurances to those in the life sciences organizations that our AI implementation aligns with all of those regulations that we've been talking about previously in the presentation today. All of those regulatory expectations are really coming into play now, and they're going to continue to pivot and align with how AI can be used. And MasterControl is committed to staying on top of that so that we make sure that we help you maintain compliance while also benefiting from the advanced AI capabilities that are coming through all of this technology. So I mentioned just briefly our proprietary architecture and the way that we are approaching AI. We have a very clear vision for how AI should be used safely in life sciences, and we build our proprietary architecture around that vision and how we want to maintain safety and compliance for both the customers who use us and their patients that are generally use the products that they produce. So that gives us three main pillars how we are approaching AI. Number one, that it is secure. We have very robust governance that controls how we maintain that transparency and keep your data secure. We have our own owned architecture that we are using for AI. We use ground up agentic AI orchestration that ensures that data stays within the master control system, within your system, so that all of the data is completely secure within master control's cloud privacy, and none of that data transmits to any third party, even other master control customers or any third party LLMs. We really want to make sure that since we know that you are dealing with sensitive data, that is very secure. And we are deeply industry focused. We understand the life science industry, and we have a very deep expertise in that and are proud of our leadership there. And so that's why, as we're able to understand all of these regulations happening both with the FDA and the EU and other regulatory bodies around the world, we understand those requirements and complexities, and we are taking all of that information in to understand how you can really safely use AI in order to gain those efficiencies without adding unnecessary risk to your system that you might be adding with third parties. And all of that is part of our master control platform. As I mentioned, we connect quality manufacturing and asset management, and being able to connect data from across all of these departments can feed all of that vast amount of data into our proprietary AI, and it has incredible benefits for quality management. It really lets you understand all of that data that is feeding in, get those predictive proprietary results, understand how everything is impacting your quality, and then be able to use our solutions to iterate and make changes to your processes so that you are more efficient, you're impacting quality for the positive, and at the end of the day, impacting those positive patient outcomes and making sure that your quality management system is providing exceptional value as we move into all of these new technologies and artificial intelligence that is opening up a whole new world to us.
And so with that, we're going to look at some of the customer-facing applications that MasterControl has available today. And we're going to start with Exam Generator. So we talked about those manual, low-risk activities that can have a lot of value to an organization. And this is one of those areas. We know that often our read and understood training is not the most effective on making sure that a user understands the training that they're given. So we've created Exam Generator so that training managers or the subject matter experts who know the content of that exam can easily and quickly produce exams, questions, and answers in various languages. So that's going to vastly improve the quality of your training program to show that you are a quality, mature organization and you're not just relying simply on read and understood, but you're actually providing meaningful exams to those users. And that's going to just improve your training overall, better comprehension, and reduce any training delays by getting those in there effectively. Next, we have Document Summarizer. We know that when we do our document change control, we want to know what's changed between revisions. This information is not just useful for document change control, it's also, again, useful for training. So we provide a mechanism called our document summarizer where you're allowed to upload two revisions of a document and compare the differences between the two. This is going to save hours for review, it's going to increase your audit readiness, and best yet, it is very secure. There are ways that you could probably do this today without Document Summarizer, but we keep your data secure to MasterControl to you so that you don't have to worry about the intellectual property in those documents being publicly available anywhere else. Next, again, Document Translator. You may ask, why do I need a document translator within MasterControl? And again, it's due to that security. You have a lot of IP in your documents, and we want to be able to give you a way to be able to securely translate those to make sure all of your information stays private to you. So we have over 20 plus languages that we now support for translator. And this is going to help keep your global sites aligned. It's going to help reduce all those outsourcing costs that you may have in order to get some of these documents translated into other languages. And lastly, we have regulatory chat. This is the chat-based access to global regulations, and we've listed some here, and we have more coming. We also will list the citations where we're finding this information to help ensure trust, to eliminate a little bit more of that hallucination that sometimes we can see through AI models. This is going to lead to a lot faster compliance research. It's going to reduce your audit risk. But again, when you're asking these questions, what is nice about our regulatory chat is that, again, your data remains private to you. So you could ask these general questions in the public open source areas. But if you have something that's kind of specific to your particular your company, your products, your submissions, your processes, you can feel more secure in asking those within our regulatory chat.
Thanks, Don. And now we are happy to show you a brief demo of Master Control Quality Excellence and how we manage our approach to quality management in general, and hopefully how we can help provide you some efficiencies and make sure that all of your quality management is completely buttoned up. And then after this short demo, we will have some time for Q&A.
Today, I'd just like to show you some ways where MasterControl as a QMS can help eliminate those areas where you may get findings. In turn, that should mitigate opportunities for recalls within your facility by meeting those requirements. I'm going to start off with MasterControl as a platform, many different quality tools, many different manufacturing tools, document control, document management, training management, quality event management, your manufacturing solutions. All of those are sitting on the MasterControl platform. So for analytics, we have created a tool called Insights, which is basically an internal BI tool, a data lake, where all of the data that you're putting in, along with the configuration data on those processes, are in one location where you can use that data to get analytics to help you with your processes. MasterControl is big on helping you with kind of some starting points and best practice configurations. So a lot of dashboards have already been created for you, but this does have the ability for your people that have the rights to go in and create their own dashboards, pull their own data. But there's some other tools in here that can really help you to keep things from happening that you don't want, that could cause those findings and things like that. So I'm showing you here just quickly a dashboard on training KPIs. And it's really showing how much training is completed, the average stage to complete that training, the percentage of all training tasks due. And you can see that, you know, all training tasks due is at 2.2%. Well, that's okay. That's not something to cause a lot of alarm. But the ability to take data and look at things and set limits to be notified when certain things happen is really powerful. So if this ever got to 5%, for example, I would like, you know, the management team to get notified. So I can come into data points and say, okay, if that data point ever gets greater than or equal to, you know, 5%, then I would like a notification, and I would like the management team to get notified, or I would like the quality team or specific individuals to get notified. So now I have the ability to set up lower control limits, right? Where if anything gets beyond that lower control limit, then I want to get notified that our processes could be getting out of control and we need to take action on that. Along with that is also the ability to extract that data as you need to. I'm going to go to another report really quick. And use the system to not only visually show that data, but also to, you know, send data out on reports. So maybe I want a past due training task to go to management every week. So like a past due training report. So I can set up training reports to go out periodically. I can set up Excel spreadsheets so I can export that data out if I need to. So the ability for me to keep people notified on their statuses is really important in that as well. So I just want to hit on this insights tool really quickly, but I really want to get into the software and kind of start showing you the software. So MasterControl has a lot of places where they can help you with configuring your system, you know, helping you configure your system how you want, but it also has the ability for you to configure the system. So we have best practices that we can implement when we implement MasterControl, but you always have the ability to configure the system however works best for your businesses. So creating your document types and how they work, creating your workflows for quality events, setting up your training how you want to. Your team will have the ability to do that configuration. Everything is very easy to configure. We will teach you the configuration, and then you can control the rights on how those people configure that. Now, part of the configuration that is also really helpful is I'm going to log in as a user in my system, so this is kind of a user experience. So Jeff in my company, he's on the manufacturing floor. He's what we call a manufacturing operator. So part of my configuration in this system was creating a role where the manufacturing operators get a different experience than, say, a quality manager or somebody who works in a lab. So I have a role in my system that I created called quality manager, and the rights I allow my my operators to see in the system is they can only see certain types of documents. So I've configured quality procedures, corporate policies, manufacturing work instructions, all sorts of different types of documents, to design history file documentation, marketing materials. There's a lot that I've configured into my system to control those document types, but this operator only gets access to the corporate documentation, the quality procedures, and the manufacturing work instruction. Why is that? I wanted my operators to have a really easy experience on being able to find only documents that are related to their job and not muddling through a lot of documents that don't have anything to do with what they do. But another thing I can do, and this is where it can really help you with those findings, a lot of issues come up with users not being able to find documents quickly, grabbing the wrong revisions of documents. So to eliminate that, what I've done is I've created folders. Well, first of all, with the rights that Jeff has, is documents can be in several statuses, right? They could be in draft, where we're creating a new revision of a document or creating a new document. They can be approved or released where they have been signed off as the working document, or they can be archived as old revisions of documentation. So along with only giving Jeff access to certain types of documents that relate to his job, I can also only give him access to approved documents. So now when my operators are going into the system to find documentation, not only are they only finding documents that are related to their job, but they're also only working to approved documents. So I'll never have to worry about a finding about an operator working to an archived document, because the system will not allow their role to see that archived document. Along with that, I can also organize the document so that the people can find it really quickly. And the system will automatically organize these for me based off of the configuration I've set up. This is called an Explorer folder. And you can see, for example, Jeff is in the operator document. He can get to his manufacturing procedures really quickly, which will show all of the manufacturing procedure. Notice they're only in a release state because Jeff can't see draft or archive. But the system's automatically organizing it. This folder is looking for manufacturing procedures that are approved. So as new manufacturing procedures come in, go through the automated workflow and get approved, that folder will automatically point to those. Documents that get revised, revision 1 is approved, revision 2 is getting released. As revision 2 goes through its redlining and approval process within the system and gets approved, revision 1 gets pushed into an archive state. This folder automatically updates to revision 2. So in turn, what I get is a virtual SOP binder for my operators that nobody in my company has to maintain. It's always keeping itself up to date with the latest and newest revisions of those documents. Nobody's maintaining that. So really what I want is for Jeff to come into the system, be able to find his documents really easily, go to training tasks that are up for him, where he can go through his training task and take his exams and sign off on that really quickly and easily see that really quickly. But I really want my operators to have a software that looks like it was just created for operators to find their documents and do their training. So that's how I've set it up for Jeff. And then if I go in as somebody like a quality manager or a manufacturing manager, their access is much different because they need to do a lot more things in the system. They have to be able to create documents, investigate complaints, set up people's training requirements. So you see when Matt's logged into the system, not only does he have access to the My MasterControl, but he has access to other parts of the system like documents, training, working on, maybe he works on audits a little bit. So he's got configuration, it's been configured for this management, the person in this management role to be able to do a lot more in the system than an operator. Now, I'm going to get into starting to show some of the functionality of the system. But one thing I want to do is I'm going to search for a document really quick, and I want to tell you the story show you the story that I'm going to tell you. So let me pull into this document. So what I want to show you is how MasterControl, as a closed loop system, can help you. So all of the functionality of MasterControl is on one software platform, and the system can organically connect that, create a quality ecosystem for you. So a day in the life. I have a deviation that has been brought up. So I'm filling out a deviation form, and during the investigation of that deviation form, I realized that this is a very high-risk deviation and may need to be escalated to CAPA. So I've created my system so I can launch a child form right off of that deviation and send that to my CAPA team so that they can start doing a deeper dive evaluation of that corrective action or of that issue and see if it needs to go into a full-blown CAPA process, or maybe it could be tracked and trimmed or closed as just an event based off of that risk. If they decide that needs to go into CAPA, then they can launch a CAPA form directly from that issue review, which will take them through their root cause investigation, their corrective action planning, their implementation of that corrective action, effectiveness verification. But oftentimes during the implementation part of the implementation is to revise documentation. Now the documents module takes over the document revision process. If it's a procedure that needs to be revised, the system knows how that document gets revised, all the attributes of that document, takes it through its workflow through an automated process, and then approves that document. Now that's going to take care of the document part, but I can link the CAPA directly to that document, so I now have a connection that this document to this revision was changed because of this CAPA. And with that document being revised, we also have a tight integration between the documents module and the training module. So the training module knows that a procedure is being revised. As soon as it gets revised, the system knows all of the people that trained to that document. So upon the approval of that procedure, the training module launches out training to all the required trainees with that new revision attached to it. Now, that actually gives me the ability, if you've ever sat in an audit and tried to, an auditor's looking at an auditor or inspector's looking at a deviation and sees the risk in that, and they want to know what all you have done for that high risk deviation. Typically, before we went to this system at my previous company, that was an exercise in scrambling to a bunch of different places on the computer, different filing cabinets within the system, trying to find the doc, all the training record, showing how that's related to that kappa, how that goes back to that deviation. Now that's all connected internally. So for that deviation, they say that's high risk. I'll say, yes, that is high risk. You can see from my risk score. So what I did is I sent that to our kappa team to do a deeper dive evaluation of that for escalation. They showed that it needed to go to kappa. So I clicked the link and showed the corrective action plan that we went through to correct that problem and the effectiveness check. But if they want to go down that rabbit hole deeper, they'll say things like, show me the documents that were changed. Well, now all I have to do is click the link from the kappa to the document, show all the documents that were revised from that system. In turn, that shows all the training that happened on those documents. So now when that auditor or inspector says, show me everything that happened with this deviation, in 4 mouse clicks, I can take you from the deviation to the training that happened because of that high-risk deviation and the entire process that happened to get it from that deviation to the training that happened. So I'm going to start with just showing you some of the different modules in the system. Let me log out as Matt. Everybody has the rights that they can do. Go in as somebody who has the right to do what I want to show. So I'm going to start with the forms process in MasterControl. So for your forms, your quality events, things like deviations, nonconformances, kappas, things like that. MasterControl has a tool called Advanced Quality Event Management. It's a no-code tool where you can create workflows with the data you want to collect in each step of that workflow for those quality events. Just as an example, I might be working on an unplanned deviation. When I go into that deviation, it shows me the data that I'm supposed to put in for my step in the workflow. The system sent me the task because I'm in the workflow as the person that investigates deviations. So I get the task. I would go through and fill out the data that I'm required to fill out. I would be able to see all of the data that has been given to me in previous steps of the workflow. I am able to link any supporting, attach any supporting documentation, like if I have images or PDFs of emails that I want to attach as supporting documentation. I can also link to other pieces of the system. I can link to procedures. I can link this to maybe there's already a kappa open for this, and I want to link it to that kappa to make it part of that kappa. I can link to that. I have the ability to do things like ask for extension requests and send out tasks for people to give me information that I need for this deviation. So I can fill out my data and submit that, and then it moves along in the workflow. But I'm capturing all that data. It's something that I can do analytics on, and it can connect to the other pieces of the system. So from the user point of view, I just want to show you how that was all created. Now, MasterControl will provide you with best practice out-of-the-box solutions for those quality events. Things like out-of-spec, non-conformances, kappas, issue review, deviations, management of change. And for each of these processes, we've given you a best practice template based off of our 20 plus years of experience within the quality event world and working with customers, with all the customers that we have. So we can give you your own workflow showing you, where we've built this out where, it starts with capturing non-conformance issues, the data that we typically see captured for a non-conformance, the workflow that goes on to go through non-conformance to risk assessments, to investigations, to verifications, dispositions. So if you want to use our template right out of the box, you can use that template. Just put in the people in the steps that are supposed to be notified when it goes through that workflow, and that's all you really need to do in the system. You can also, because it's such an easy tool to design in, You can also, let me go back to, let's go to this. You could also take our out-of-the-box solution and modify it however you need for your business. So maybe in that first step, there are fields in here. There are fields in here where you don't like the labels for those. You could change those labels. Maybe there's fields that we're collecting that you don't need at all. You could delete those fields out. Maybe you need to add fields that are not in our out-of-the-box solution. So it's just a matter of you going into this little widget here and picking the type of field you want. Maybe I want a long text field here. I want to ask a question. I want to make that a required field. Maybe put some hint text in there, character limits. So in this scenario, I'm taking MasterControl's out-of-the-box solution and I'm modifying it to some specifics in my business. And then you also have the ability for those forms, whether we're way off on what we want to show to you, or you have forms that we don't have a template for, you can also create your own forms from scratch, where you just come in here and you build your workflow out how you want it to work, go into each of those steps of that workflow and put your own data in there that you want to collect. I'm doing one here for a continuous improvement form that I want people to be able to launch if they see a place in my company for improvement where they add that information in there, and let us evaluate that and see what kind of plan we would want to put in place to implement that continuous improvement plan. So I actually built my own form in here. It's a very easy tool, all no code to build your own forms. So with that, I've gone through that form piece. That also works with the, that configuration piece also works with documents and training. I just want to show a few things on documents. You as a company can create whatever document types you want in the system. We can configure those for you as well. But as your people put documents into the system, let's say I'm going to put an SOP in here. Really, because it's configured, because you've configured it, or with the help of us have configured this, or you can configure these on your own. Let me put a manufacturing procedure in. The system is configured to make it really easy for the end user. I want to create a manufacturing procedure. I don't have to know what the next number in the scheme is. I've had the system creating the numbering scheme for me based off of either my previous numbering scheme or a numbering scheme I've designed. It knows where it lives in the system, so I don't have to figure out where to put this in the system. It knows the workflow it goes on to be approved. Really, all I need to do is give this a title, add the document that I want to put into the controlled environment to go through its approval process. You'll see a place where you can create your own metadata to track and trend, search, report, organize. So I like to organize my documents by product. So I am forcing my end users to put the product in, but that could be product, department, location, customer, project. And then another piece that's really nice is the ability to link documentation together. So if I have a procedure that's related to 2 work instructions or referenced in 2 work instructions, I can link the procedure to the work instructions. That gives me a place where I can search for documents based off of documents that reference each other, but also the system will warn you if you go to change a procedure, you go to revise the procedure, it'll warn you that there may be other documentation that needs to be updated because of that. So when I go to check out a procedure to revise it, the system will tell me that you have 2 work instructions that also could be affected by this. Do they need to be revised? So if keeping documents out of sync is a problem within your facility, this really helps with that. Now, like I said, you can design your own workflows in the system. So for those documents, you can build your workflows where your teams can, and you can create different workflows for different document types. So maybe for my manufacturing procedure, I have a team that collaborates on a new procedure or the revision of a procedure, where those people can go in, review the document, make edits to the document, get it ready for approval. And then when I feel that document is ready for approval, so we're all doing that in one place. When I feel it's ready for approval, I can sign off on that and move it into the approval process. Now the system will automatically move it to the next step. It'll notify the people in those steps, and it will also send them an email notification. You can do things like parallel steps where you can get documents through the system much quicker because you're sending it to multiple people, multiple groups to approve at the same time. You can do escalation. So if one of your groups doesn't sign off on a document in a certain amount of time, it might get escalated to their manager. So you'll see almost an instant increase in throughput on getting documents approved based off of the workflow building tool. Also, another thing that's nice is the ability to create PDF renderings of the document. So, and that can be a right thing. So my management team that makes revisions to documents, they have access to the native documents in the system, but they can also see the PDF that MasterControl created. My operators, I don't want them to get their hands on the native file, so they only have access to the PDF rendering. What this will do is, one, give them the ability to give you the ability to put watermarks and things like that on the document, but also put rules on the document. So for my manufacturing team, I am letting them print the document out. You can take that right away as well. So when they print the document out, it'll do things like document who printed that document out and when that document expires. So I've set up a 48-hour expiration date on manufacturing procedures. So now when somebody prints it out, it shows who printed it and when they printed it, but also will stamp an expiration date that this document's only good for 48 hours from the time that it was printed out. Now, one thing that is really cool that will save you from a lot of findings is, let's say that my operator takes a electronic copy of the document, does a file save as, and saves that PDF to their desktop. That is every quality person's nightmare because that person now has a rogue copy. They're never going back to that controlled environment. So what the system does is if they do a file save as and save that to their desktop, that expiration date actually turns into a time bomb on that PDF that they took. So they can open that document for 48 hours, but on the 49th hour when they go to that icon and try to open it up, the system will just tell them the document's expired, it will no longer open. They had to go back to MasterControl for another rendering. So I think everybody that's been in a quality audit at one point or another has had to explain to an auditor why Jeff's on revision 2 of the document and the rest of the company is on revision 4. This actually helps eliminate that problem because it's blowing up that document after a certain period of time. All right, so back to my overall view of this. I kind of got through that documents piece. I wanted to show one more thing on the documents piece, sorry. So as our documents are in the system and they go through, revision or collaboration of a new document, approval and release, not only am I updating those folders that I set up for different groups, but the system will automatically send training out upon the approval of that document. So in the training module, I will have configured for that labeling procedure, I will have configured a labeling training course that has all the rules and instructions and who trains for that. So as that document gets approved, the system sees the change of state of that and automatically launches the training out. So I'm not running around figuring out how to get all the people trained. The system's taking that part over. And I want to show the training piece of this really quick. Let me log back out here. So I did show the training piece as the end user for Jeff when he gets this training task, but this document that Jeff's training on, if you look at the materials, it's actually a procedure that got revised and the system automatically launched that training out. The way that happened was we've created courses in the system for all of my different training tasks with the rules, instructions. Do I need an exam? What are they training to? Linking it to a document makes an internal connection, but you can also attach other pieces. But what I really want is to set up my training matrix so that anytime I need to see what's going on with a group like operators, it's easy for me to go into the status of that group, see the operators in my company, their curriculum to be trained as an operator, and their percentage of completion. So you can see here that for my operators, I can really quickly see who could do a task. Maybe if somebody called in sick, I could see really quickly who can do a task. I can really quickly see as an auditor who is behind when an audit or as a quality manager who's behind it when a training task comes up. So an auditor's coming in, I know that I don't want them to see Doug Little at 9% completion. So this gives you a really cool view of how the different groups are doing and how they're going on in their curriculum. The trainees actually get tasked in the system. That task goes through an introduction telling them what they need to do, the materials that they're training to, so they would see the materials. If you want to test for competency, you can build exams. A lot of regulations now are requiring proof of competency. An exam is a great way to do that, where they go into the exam. I've created an exam for them. They got to get a passing score. I've given them retakes. When they go into the exam, it'll show the questions that I've created for them. True, false, multiple choice, matching, sequencing, numeric. Also being able to put images in there and ask questions about the images. As they take the exam, it will show their level of complete, or how they did in that exam, what they got correct, what they got incorrect, whether they passed or failed. Now, if Jeff would have failed, he would have gotten a retake. In this case, Jeff passed, so he will sign off with his electronic signature. And now it'll update everywhere in the system that Jeff is now trained to that labeling procedure. Now, as far as those exams go, I don't know if you have ever had to create exams. I am horrible at creating exams. It's easy to think of questions. For me, the hardest part is trying to think of incorrect questions. So or incorrect answers. So when you have a multiple choice, it's easy for me to pick the correct question, the correct answer. But coming up with 3 incorrect answers that actually make sense, that was the hardest part for me. I just hate creating exams. So MasterControl has created an AI tool that will generate exams for you. So I want to show you that really quick. Let me go back into myself. So let's say that I've got a procedure out there, and part of that is I want an exam for people to take as part of their training requirements. It's really just as easy for me to choose the document that I want to do an exam on, tell the system to process that document so that I can select the areas where I want to ask questions, and then tell the system to generate questions. So you'll see from that document that I selected the areas I want questions from, the system will go through. It's figuring out the questions it's going to ask right now. So the system starts kicking me out questions from that document. You'll see it's asking me questions like, what does the acronym AQL stand for? And it actually gives some pretty logical incorrect answers as well. So it came up with 5 questions for me. It also, if I don't like the questions, I can say, regenerate a new question. I don't like that one. Or if I want to edit it, I can edit it, or I can just kick it out if I want to. So the time that it takes you to create an exam, even if it's only an hour, I'm now doing it in 5 minutes. So it's a really valuable tool to save time for your users that create those. So there's only one more piece in the demonstration that I want to show, and that's the big picture. Looking at, and I haven't got into our manufacturing tool. I'm going to show you a scenario here really quickly where so we do have a manufacturing tool where you can create your batch records or your DHFs, so that your people are actually doing that data in the system electronically rather than on paper. Paper is a nightmare. Matt talked about it earlier with our review by exception, where it just shows you any errors in the system where people weren't trained or where maybe a deviation was launched or a correction was made. Your people will be able to go into the system. Let me go back to this. Your say engineers or the people designing your production records, they'll be able to go in and build your batch record so that people are it's going to mistake proof a lot of your production records, right? With people not skipping steps, people not putting anything that's illegible, people forgetting the way that you're supposed to correct an error in the system. So you can build those processes out. But one thing that this will do is it will actually integrate with your quality system. So I can attach procedures and work instructions directly to the manufacturing record. So that manufacturing record always has the latest procedure associated with it. It will do training checks so that if you're not trained to the procedure that you're working on in that production record, the system won't let you put data in. It will actually send you to your training task to train on it so that you can come back and put data. You can also launch quality events from your production record. So I can launch deviations and nonconformances directly from my production record so that I don't have to figure out how to make that connection from the quality system back to the manufacturing tool. And I'm going to show you just really quickly here in the system. Let me go to manufacturing. So I'm just going to show you a really quick scenario here, and then I will be done with my demonstration. So I'm going to production records, and I'm going to show you what it would look like to an end user when they go into the system. They would go to the production record that they're working on. Let me just view all here real quick. So I'm working on this production record 217, lot number 217. I go through my workflow and work on the pieces that, that are part of my job. So if I go into this, line clearance on the production area, notice that it's not letting me put data in because I haven't trained to this. So it's actually giving me a link to my training task. So I can do the training, and then I can come back and have it check the training, and I can start putting the data in there. Now, in another step of this procedure, or in this manufacturing work instruction, let me go back out of this. This is actually also doing some calculations, and my calculations are showing that I'm out of specification. So I'm able to launch deviations directly from the production record, and that would be attached to that actual section where we deviated. And then in the review by exception part of this, it will also show you any forms that have been launched and what areas that those were applicable to. So a deviation was launched in the system. I've got the link to the deviation, and it shows me exactly what caused that deviation to be launched. And then if you go back to the quality side of this, you'll see that, back to mine, AQM. So a deviation was launched because of a manufacturing process. If you look at this, here's the deviation that I'm working on. Notice that it's linked here to some other pieces. So the deviation caused me to come in and initiate a deviation, put in my deviation information, also start doing investigations on that deviation, on what caused that. And because of my risk score in this deviation, it says that this should be escalated to be reviewed for CAPA. So what I did is I launched an issue review, which is a CAPA request form, so that my CAPA team could actually do a deeper dive look into that deviation and see if it's something that might need CAPA. So you can see that this deviation, we went through the issue initiation, the risk assessment, the disposition of that. The disposition said this does need a CAPA. So you can see that I'm tied directly to a CAPA that was launched from this issue review, which is now taking me through, I'm in the root cause investigation step of this, and it will go through its workflow through root cause, corrective action planning, plan implementation, effectiveness checks, and deviation. But I just wanted to show you really quickly the ease of how I tied all of that together. I had that manufacturing process that caused the deviation to happen. While I'm in the deviation, I can see the risk took me to a CAPA review. So I clicked the link and took me to that CAPA review. The CAPA review showed that, from our CAPA team, showed that it did need to go to a CAPA. Click the link and show the CAPA that I'm in now. If documents need to be revised, I'll link to those documents, and it'll show me all of the documents that were revised, which in turn will show me the training that happened on those documents. So that's the big picture value that you get out of this, is where you can eliminate those areas for potential findings, which in turn could cause recalls.
So now we are going to spend some time hearing from the audience, now because we've made sure to have time available to answer questions from attendees, and we have a few here that we want to cover. So I will go over those, and I will tag Dawn in, as I think that she has some great insight here as well. So the first one, could Elsa hallucinate and cause an audit when it isn't necessary? Is there human oversight of Elsa? So we have heard that, yes, Elsa can hallucinate. We've heard some of that through, the very initial rumblings of reports when Elsa was released in June or July, I think. But that is where really the FDA comes in to make sure that there's updates and that they keep that really tight. And the FDA actually released some commentary after those. There was some suspect of hallucinations, to talk about how they've already started resolving those and what they're going to do there. So really, at the end of the day, Elsa is an assistive and internal tool. It's not an autonomous decision maker. It is not single-handedly deciding who is going to be audited. The FDA staff still makes that decision. So while I told you there's been some mixed internal feedback early, and you can find, you can Google that or use AI and find articles about some of the concerns there. you really should expect human review on top of anything that Elsa is surfacing from AI. And also really how the FDA has committed to making sure that this is a useful, accurate tool that can be used with trust. It seems like they really want to make an impact there and make sure that this is really useful and really accurate and something that their people can use and trust. But on the other side of that coin, I will say it's always good to just be prepared for an audit and keep your house in order. Surprise audits are not, um, unheard of. And so, well, Elsa may pinpoint, a certain organization to be audited. Really, everybody should always be ready to be audited at any point anyway. And hopefully, AI will start helping companies prepare for those audits as well as part of their QMS. Let's see. There's another one here about Elsa. How should we prepare? What should we prepare to show if we're selected via an Elsa-driven triage? Dawn, I will throw that one over to you, as I know that you have, extensive experience in understanding quality management documentation as our product manager over quality excellence.
Yeah, I mean, for that one, I think I've said it before. We've said it before in this webinar, documentation. You want very tight inspection-ready documentation. These are the things that you're already doing today. Clear change control. You want data integrity records. You want to make sure you have clean linkages between your CAPAs and your quality events. There's consistent labeling. You want to make sure there's a concise narrative that reconciles all the previous commitments and outcomes within your quality management system. These are the things that you're doing today. That the reason why you want to prepare for that is that these are the types of documentation that Elsa is helping the FDA quickly parse through. So just make sure you have your documentation for your good documentation practices. Make sure you're doing what you can for your business processes and you're always following those and making sure you have very clear, accurate, and up to date documentation, and you should be okay.
So the last one that we will take today is around the EU, and it speaks more on that idea of an AI QMS and what that means in practice. So can you talk about how it relates to Annex 11 and Annex 22? So for the way that the EU is talking about it, an AI QMS really just means your existing QMS with AI specific add-ons. A lot of like what Dawn talked about. And one of the great things about what we are producing at MasterControl is these are really defined in that low risk category right now. So it's not impacting critical decisions that you're making for your quality. It's just impacting your efficiency and your ability to do more faster so that you can have humans focus on those critical decisions. And so when you're talking about that, it really is about those, understanding any risk management for what models you're using, understanding your data governance, understanding how your AI is, what access you have to the way that it's thinking, if it is in those critical decisions, how you're adding in human oversight, having all of that technical documentation. And for Annex 11 and Annex 22 specifically, so Annex 11 is really just about your baseline computerized systems that you use for any type of quality management. And Annex 22 layers on top of that for AI-specific guardrails. So your idea of an AI QMS is going to bundle both of those as you add in those, or as your vendor adds in AI-specific tools. And all of that is going to map to that EU AI Act that I talked about earlier, and making sure that you have all of the proper documentation and technical evidence for how you are using AI. So something like that might look like a complete inventory of all of your systems that have AI tools, all of any extra AI tools that you are using, how they are being used, how people were trained on them, what that means for your organization, and just having all of your ducks in a row of here is exactly how we're using AI. Here's the data that it touches. Here's the types of decisions that it's helping us make. Here's how we've trained everybody so that when an auditor asks you about that, you're prepared. That's really all that means. We do want to, we've talked a lot about AI today, but we want to leave you with another AI element that we hope you find helpful. And this is our guide for ensuring AI compliances in life sciences. And we've broken that down into 5 critical requirements. We'd love to have you scan this QR code and download the brief. We think it's going to be really helpful for life science organizations as they are trying to learn about how to adopt AI safely, how regulatory bodies are going to look at it. It's really just kind of above and beyond what we talked about today for how specifically you think about AI for your organization and how you want to move forward. We hope this finds helpful, or we hope you find this helpful. We hope that it helps improve your career and as we all move forward through this AI world. And really, we just want to say thank you so much for attending. We love talking about our approach to AI, and we are really excited here at MasterControl for the possibilities. So thank you very much for joining us today.